Let's say Jimmy was the Steelers quarterback last year. They draft Kenny Pickett. They just cut Jimmy. Jimmy's now just available to the league, and his price is $6.5 million to be the backup. Meanwhile, the Niners drafted Trey Lance last year, and Trey Lance was just their quarterback last year. And but he got hurt a couple of times, which happened. They want a backup. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo for $6.5 million.
Way less weird.
So why? Why? I mean, you're right.
Because that's normal NFL protocol.
Yes.
You don't know each other. You bring in backups. That you do it. It happens all over the league, even with Mahomes and Brady. It is much weirder when the incumbent gets replaced by a draft pick, but he carries out the 1 year while that guy figures it out, which historically happens before we were born and, well, the majority of the time in our life till recently when you draft a quarterback and you just let him be the starter. And then that guy starts his first year and then he gets replaced and everyone acknowledges like the young guy's coming, he's getting replaced, and then the other guy just stays. Right. I think Carson Palmer did it with John Kitna. I'm pretty sure John Kitna went on to another team the following year once Carson comes in. Like that's just the way the sport works. You know?
So yeah. So what you just said was the difference is the pre-existing relationships, because the position part of it, a big part of it is you are the team leader. There's no there might be some co-captains and two of them are, one of them's a linebacker. Maybe you got two linebackers. Maybe you got Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa are co-captains. There are no co-captains at quarterback. There's just the quarterback.
Well, that's Harbaugh, right? You're only allowed to play one guy.
They split the baby. And that's what makes this situation different, is Jimmy was one of the leaders, and then Trey became one of the leaders. So does it make it weird in the locker room? Does it make it weird with his team? Is this fair to Trey Lance? Or is this unfair to Trey Lance? Or is there such a thing as fair or unfair when it comes to competition?
Well, there is nothing, I would say, in life that is truly, quote unquote, fair. Life is not fair. But in football, and when you build a roster, you can rig it, right? It's like in life, most of our situations, you can't rig. In football, I can rig who's on my team. Like you're going to see over we're recording this now Monday afternoon, so less than 24 hours. Guys are going to get cut left and right all over the place. And a lot of them will be names you've never heard of unless you knew that guy in college. But some of them will be veteran players, different places.
Patrick Laird.
It'll be like Kenny Golladay, or I'm just picking a veteran player. And that
Laquan Treadwell got cut.
And that mindset of that team or that coach would be like, well, we had a rookie corner or a rookie wide receiver that we're going to start. And we're not going to have this guy be a locker room lawyer or whatever. Now, that would already be the pushback on Jimmy. He's not a locker room lawyer. He's not built like that. And I think Kyle might even say he's been a backup before in his life. And I'd say, yeah, he did backup. I don't know. One of the greatest players in the history of sports. So a lot of people backed up Tom. It was a normal position. Why? Because Tom started for 20 plus years. He's Tom fucking Brady. So, yeah, he's been a backup, but pretty unique backup spot. Now, I think back to that, he doesn't know how to be a backup, and he's been in that position. But I don't know. What gets to me, and we talked about this on the podcast, I think we're burning, is that we have seen so many different times just throughout the league that when you're the backup quarterback and a guy is struggling, whether it's Zach Wilson, a new rookie, or whether it's an established guy, and the backup is intriguing for whatever reason, that fan base wants it. And I brought up the situation because it's kind of famous in like embarrassing 49er lore of when they chanted for David Carr and Alex was on the team with Singletary.
But Singletary had him warm up.
This situation is much different, but if Jimmy has, I think right before we hopped on, I saw Kawakami's like, we are a couple 3-and-outs just in certain situations with Jimmy standing there. This team, because it gets back to, we had talked about the pressure on Trey Lance's, I think we're erasing this from the podcast as well, that everywhere you looked on, PFF, NFL.com, every site, Trey Lance is getting the picture of Trey fucking Lance. Now,
go watch the old YouTube from Monday to watch that segment.
I did wonder is that an algorithm?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But I just think that.
Good question, though.
I wonder if it could be. This situation, the pressure that it adds to him, even if they're buddies, and even if Jimmy's really cool, by all accounts he is, how about the stuff from us? How about the stuff from the fans? Now, Bill Polian's always said, and I think these guys subscribe to that, if you listen to fans, you'll be sitting with them. But they're going to get loud in this situation if it were to get weird, which we already thought there are going to be some weird moments for a young kid. So I think this is the biggest risk by a mile they have taken probably since they drafted Reuben Foster. And looking back at the Reuben Foster situation, they didn't have much to lose because they were already losing a ton of games. And that look back, the way that all played out, that was a risky situation that blew up in their face. They haven't really made that many risky propositions. DeForest was, and it didn't age that well until last year that they were able to win some games. He started kicking ass. He was team captain. I mean, it was that was a bad situation. But that was a situation that we've seen before, right? Team trade a guy, going to get paid to do some other things. They got a first-round pick. It was justifiable. This situation is justifiable in a vacuum. I get Jimmy for 6.5. But how about when you get out of the vacuum and you factor in personal dynamics, a young quarterback who's not coming from Alabama or Ohio State, he's coming from North Dakota State, just first year really in the big leagues as the starter. The more and more, I think it is very fucking risky. You won't convince me otherwise. I don't care how great and how high character and first-year quarterback coach. That's pretty crazy, too. I mean, this is not a guy who's I know he's played in the league, and his dad was a quarterback in the league, but like this guy's seen a million things as a quarterback coach.
Well, Jimmy's quarterback coach now as backup quarterback, right? Isn't that part of the backup deal? These guys.
You agree? Are you with me? This is one of the riskier things they've done.
Yeah. Yes. I think trading for Trey was pretty risky. Also, right? I mean, it's that, and we don't know yet if that risk is paid off or not.
So you're just doubling down on risk. That was risky for sure.
That was risky. I think one thing we've seen consistently, and this I think puts pressure on Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, right? This is a situation that if Trey Lance doesn't develop, that
maybe it's Jed's idea.
Well, maybe it's Jed's idea. He said whatever those guys want to do. He was ready to pay $24 million for Jimmy. But this puts pressure on them, and obviously it puts pressure on Trey. It puts pressure on Jimmy, kind of, although I've already seen Jimmy. I don't think, and this is where a lot of their risk and like the Debo, their dedication to just sticking it out with Debo. And we've talked about this. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan now have a track record of betting on their ability to manage people to help them in situations that look like they could be awkward. They've repeatedly done it. And the situation with Reuben was that. They were betting on their ability to manage and create an environment for Reuben. They did it again with when they traded up for Trey. They did it with Debo, obviously. They did it when they traded DeForest because he was a team leader and they bet that they had the other people. So they are making, if I were to defend him here, I'd say they're making a pretty educated, they're making an educated risk based on their knowledge of Trey, based on their knowledge of Jimmy. Jimmy Garoppolo has given us no reason to believe that he'll be a disruption. To your point, you recommended he become a disruption like a month ago and get himself traded. He didn't do it. So there are
I'm putting it more on the outside stuff than on. I don't expect Jimmy to be weird.
Stuff. I also think it's just the nature of a professional locker room that is, as much as people have relationships, they want to win. And the risk you run is that they end up in a situation where they're not winning and there are people that want them to go to Jimmy, right? Like, what if there are people in the lock? What if Debo thinks that Jimmy's a better quarterback than Trey Lance is right now? If that were the case.
Well, I use this to laugh, but what you just said, Kittle is one of their more famous and better players. And if the quarterbacks were a stock, he moved all of his asset allocation from one guy to another pretty aggressively, and rightfully so. And no one even blamed him. Like, Kittle just pivoted. It's kind of a weird spot for him, wouldn't you say? Like, I thought that was funny, but it was.
Yeah, I mean, everyone pivoted. That was that's when we go back to what their actions were. Their actions were everybody pivoted to Trey.
Quarterback, coaches, players, yeah.
Fans. I want to disagree with what you said. Kawakami said earlier about like a few bad plays. The external, the fans. Like, we saw Jimmy play, right? He's not Trey is not replacing a guy that was without.
But you forget.
Maybe the backup quarterback, the most popular guy, that whole thing. Yeah, that's true. But I do think there are just fundamental things that even when Trey isn't doing some of the stuff that Jimmy did in terms of reading defenses right away, There are just parts of his game that he has that Jimmy just fundamentally doesn't have. The athleticism, the arm, the physicality. So, in the now burned podcast, we talked about this year wins is just a QB stat for Trey Lance as long as they're winning. Is there a world where they're winning, but he's not great? Like, to me, it changes that a little bit. Is there a world where they're winning, but he's not great and they just need a little more? Maybe. Again, it's not about what you or I say or what the media says or what the fans say. Last year, Kyle Shanahan stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo when it wasn't going good and later admitted he was probably a game or two away from making the switch to Trey. So has he in a year replaced Trey or replaced Jimmy with Trey in that mindset? Like, it's going to take a lot for me to change guys. I think it is. I think it's going to take a lot for him to change because he also is very invested. He went all in on Trey 2 years ago in the draft. So he wants that thing to work.
True, but he does. But as long as he keeps winning, like he is, and I say this a lot about coaches, Kyle Shanahan is obsessed with 2022 right now, as he should be, as all the other 32 coaches, coordinators, position coaches around the league. They're trying to win September 11th, right? Or if you're 4 other teams, either the Monday night or Thursday night, all you care about is that game. And then the next, Kyle Shanahan is obsessed with winning double-digit games and trying to win the division, getting a home playoff game. He'll worry about 23 when 23 comes, right? Yeah, especially in the season, it's not like you're doing drafts and free agency stuff. He ain't trying to lose. Like we've seen the good and the bad with him. And when it's going bad, he looks like he's ready to jump off a bridge. And when it's going good, he's not like he's closer to Belichick in terms of emotion. You can tell he's excited to win, but beside the playoff games, Kyle's not a big, like, he leans negative. And that position's his baby because the offense is his baby, and that position is the point guard of his offense. So this has added an element to Trey's start of his career that I think we had just not even acknowledged as a possibility. Yeah. I think part of back to the Steve Young thing, and I wonder if he kept saying it because, like, it was clearly on the table. It was so far-fetched that no one took it seriously. And let's face it, most people, when they read that, if they didn't like have a buddy to make fun, inside they made fun of Jed for that comment. Like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, what are we talking about?
You can't,
even though it came true. And I do believe in Jed's mind because I think they've been talking about it, and maybe they've inspired by the Peacock documentary or reading Steve's book. They think it's possible.
Well, they knew what the market was dictating, right? Like, they've known for a while whether anybody was interested and what kind of money Jimmy was getting offered.
Well, of course, but the fans by about 2 weeks ago knew, like, there was no trade market and no one's trading for him.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just saying it's probably been on their mind for a long time because they started investigating what Jimmy's contract worth.
Yeah, and OTAs
a long time ago.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say it was kind of universally accepted by the time training camp started? Like, I don't know where he's going to go, right?
Oh yeah,
You could ask the average fan. They're like, yeah, the Niners going to have to cut him.
Right.
Like, it was one of those things that, like, if you follow the NFL, I would say since about August 1st, like, yeah, Jimmy's probably going to get cut.
Is this up there with remember when Wilmer Flores got traded and then got untraded and cried and then hit a game-winning home run for the Mets? Jimmy did a farewell. A lot of people in the chat are reminding us that Jimmy did a farewell press conference.
He did a farewell press conference, but then he didn't go anywhere, and he kept throwing. I think once he started throwing for the 49ers during training camp practices on the side, that, like, would be null and void. That press conference was a little less like, you couldn't keep bringing it up.
The Niners had a farewell press conference from their quarterback and an alleged trade demand from their best receiver, and both guys are on the team.
I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan kind of had a farewell to him as well.
They definitely had a farewell. They 100% had a farewell.
I think part of the thing that's so crazy why everyone's kind of laughing is, like, everyone had moved on from Jimmy. The coaches, Jimmy, the other players, the fans, everyone on the internet, all the other teams are like, should we be interested in this guy? Like, everyone over 8 months, we're all on the same page. Every single person, except Kyle, John, Jimmy, and looks like Jed. They never threw out hope when all of us, I gave up hope in February. Most people, I'd say, probably around the draft. Some people OTAs once Trey became the starter, and then a lot during training camp. Like, this thing's over. And every single one was wrong, except the 3 or 4 of those guys. Even Don Yee was probably like, I got to get him out of there. He's like, Jimmy just won't listen to me. Like, is this what Don Yee wanted? It feels like this is what Jimmy wanted, what Kyle wanted. John's kind of cool with it. I would imagine things are a little risky. And Jed just wants to be like, have his Steve Young, Joe Montana moment. It feels like Jimmy's cool with this. Kyle obviously wants it. I bet John has to think it's a little risky. And Jed loves that it's Steve Young and Joe Montana. He can just fucking never stop talking about that.
John on the stream asked, what if the players vote Jimmy a team captain?
Then that's where you rig it and you would not acknowledge that it happened.
It'd be a very big red flag, yes.
Would you, if you were Kyle, not tell anybody?
Just count the votes yourself?
Well, like if everyone puts on the piece of paper, right, turns it in, you would just pretend that he never got voted team captain, never bring it up. And you would not tell anyone else. Like if you're Kyle, you add that up yourself, you ex-nay it, and you only announce the other captains.
On the stream, here's a statement, which I think I would have bet a lot of people fall in this category. All I care about is, does this make the team better or worse? And so that goes back to the conversation about Trey. Does this make, because I think you could argue, and I wonder if John Lynch will say this or Kyle will say this. Hey, Jimmy's a great resource. Jimmy is more valuable as a backup quarterback to Trey. He won't say he's more valuable than Purdy or Sudfeld. But there is a world, he would argue, where Jimmy's an extremely valuable asset to Trey Lance. And having him essentially as an assistant quarterback is going to be very valuable. I would imagine one of them will say that. Like, we expect that from Jimmy Garoppolo. So the question is, does Trey get that from him? And if so, does that outweigh whatever he has to deal with in the locker room, whatever he has to deal with, with his teammates, the public pressure, all that kind of stuff? It only makes him better for sure if Trey gets hurt.
I think most fans acknowledge, because I think with most positions, like, this guy help us, let's get him. The quarterback position's a little different. A lot of moving parts, right? Like, I agree, the resource thing, but the resource, like, is Trey going to feel cool with just going to him now in this spot? Is it hard to go from, like, the little brother to now I'm the big brother? Like, I'm the captain now? Is Trey Lance going to be a captain? I don't know. It's just.
Has to be.
Yeah, if you're Kyle, you also rig that.
He has to be.
I think I remember Russillo did a thing like he looked up, on average, 29 of the 32 quarterbacks are captains. Obviously, they're not 29 sweet captains. Like, it's just like an automatic position for the most part. And part of it is like a couple teams do not. They have like game day captains. Like, if you have legit captains, your quarterback is basically the captain on every single team. If not, you might as well just not play because your team's going to suck.
Who's the guy from Michigan State who wasn't the captain that the Raiders drafted?
Connor Cook. Yeah, Connor Cook. Remember Draymond that year? The Michigan State had like 10 players drafted. Congratulated every single one on Twitter. Nothing about him.
That's right.
And this is before Draymond was Draymond. This is like 2014. He was just like a fan because he played in the spring league, so he knew them all. He must have hated that guy.
That's right. He did play in their spring game. On the stream, pull up Chris Mortensen's recent tweets. Okay, here's what Moore tweeted. If Trey Lance isn't ready, the 49ers can't worry about saving face if he doesn't progress early in season. You do the right thing for the team that just fell short of the Super Bowl. If Lance does emerge, then Jimmy G has secured his freedom for 23. Garoppolo would have interest if released, but his best chance for success at this stage is right where he's at. The only thing that matters, as 3 sources close to the 49ers said this weekend, is to give the team the best chance to win. Jimmy G insurance makes sense.
What if Trey just stinks and Jimmy G's a quarterback for like the next 7 seasons?
And everyone's like, remember that time we tried to replace him? Like we're giving, like, everyone, you want Jimmy gone now, but in hindsight, the David Carr warmed up and the crowd chanted for him story is a story. It's one of the many stories we tell about as a testament to Alex Smith being a high-level guy, a competitor, a team-first guy. Just all the shit, right? There's all these out. Now, obviously, his injury is the number one Alex story that we tell, but that has become a story of lore for Alex. What if in 7 years, like, Jimmy, man, they tried to replace him. They cut his salary. He said, I'll work for nothing. I'll show everybody.
2 Super Bowl MVPs later, Jimmy Garoppolo is known as one of the greats.